Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Sawadee Krap, Sawadee Krap. Nice to see all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu, and welcome to all of you guys online as well who are joining us. Today is our group learning program where I share the teachings of the Buddha to help students to move the mind to this enlightened mental state where the mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, no longer experiencing any discontent feelings. You can get to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, jealousy, resentment. All these feelings and others can be completely eliminated from the mind, and you do that through training of the mind. We start our class with a meditation, which I'll guide you guys in a moment, and then afterwards I share a topic with you guys that are going to help you on your journey to enlightenment. In this group learning program, it's a 7-month program where I'm gradually helping students make their way through this book. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. You can actually get this book for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for our printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. And over a 7-month period, each Sunday I go chapter by chapter, helping students to understand the foundational teachings that on the path to enlightenment. Today we're in chapter 20, which is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is where you're learning about how the human being has evolved from many countless animal existences and all the various changes and adaptations and things that we need to experience in order to become a better and better human being. I'm also going to help you to understand the 5 realms of existence. I'm going to help you understand how people are able to observe past lives and things like this. So this is the first time that I really kind of start introducing students to the cycle of rebirth. The program starts with, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, with other teachings that you need. But then by the time we get towards the end of this program, and now we're in chapter 20, you start learning a little bit about the cycle of rebirth. But understand that none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You're not believing any of his teachings. You can actually independently verify his teachings, including the cycle of rebirth. So we'll talk about all of that when we get to it after our meditation. So again, welcome to all of you guys, whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been joining regularly. We start the meditation with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And I see some of you guys have the chanting sheets. We have these over on the table over there. If you'd like to chant along, you're welcome to get those. They're in the Pali language, and you'll see the English translations as well. These chants, they're nothing mystical or magical. They're not prayer or worship or anything like that. It's not a rite or ritual or a ceremony. Instead, during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory that he taught orally. Everything he taught was oral. They didn't write things down until after his death. So they used chanting. Once every 2 weeks, they would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word in order to commit them to the memory. And then the students, I suspect, either during his life or after his death, they probably created these chants as a way to honor and respect the Buddha. These chants most likely weren't created by the Buddha because, as you see, there's a lot of admiration and gratitude and respect for the Buddha, and a Buddha doesn't walk around teaching other people to chant these things to him. So I suspect these were created by his students either during his life or after his death. We don't need to chant anymore in order to commit the teachings to memory. That's why we have books and videos, podcasts, audiobooks, things like this. But I still chant as a way to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because it cultivates awareness of mind and concentration and awareness of breath. And there are certain courses and retreats where I teach students how to chant. But today, if you guys would like to follow along with the chants, you're more than welcome to. And for those of you guys online, you can see these on our website by going to buddhadailywisdom.com, clicking on the link where it says free books, and down towards the bottom, you'll see the chanting sheet there that you can see that we're chanting before and after meditation. So after the chanting, you're going to hear me come in with some guidance to guide you in meditation. And this is kind of instructing you and helping you understand how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here and everyone online, we'll just be meditating. and then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. For those of you guys that maybe would like some guidance on your body positioning, when you're meditating, there's 4 positions to meditate in. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. These are the 4 positions that the Buddha taught. And you would use these at different times for different reasons, but oftentimes when people are first learning to meditate, they will meditate in the seated position. So since you guys are all in the seated position, I'll help you guys to understand this. At home, you might be sitting on the floor, on a bench, on a sofa, on a wheelchair or something like this. We have chairs here as well. If anybody would like a chair, please get one, because you're not interested in being in pain at any time during your meditation. If you notice any physical pain, you would like to adjust the body or change your position, and this will help you to be more comfortable. But if you're on the floor, oftentimes people like to have a cushion or so under their rear, and then they lightly cross their legs. If you have your legs real tight, this will impede the circulation, and it'll make it challenging for you to meditate because you're going to feel pain. So if you just lightly cross your legs, this usually works out best. And then some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And again, it allows the circulation to flow. This practice isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way. You do whatever's comfortable for you. So you find whatever position is comfortable. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you would like to use this, you can. If you find it comfortable, excellent. But if not, there's other options, because as I mentioned, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So whatever's comfortable for you, you can just put your hands and arms wherever is comfortable. It's best if the upper body is erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll keep the mind attentive and alert, and it'll also make it easy for you to be able to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And for anyone who's in a chair or a sofa or wheelchair or something like this, oftentimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but it's really up to you. I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so you could sit however is comfortable. And then the same thing with the hands and the arms, sit however you're comfortable, and then same thing with the upper body. So again, I'm going to start us off with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'm going to come back in with some guidance to help you during the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichara ชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตูอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวาปมนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who joined us since we started meditating. Welcome to everyone online as well. As I mentioned, today is our group learning program, and I share teachings with you guys that are going to help you to understand the path to enlightenment, how to move the mind to the peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy that the Buddha taught. And this is called enlightenment, where the mind is permanently in this mental state where it's impossible for you to ever experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind. And this occurs through training of the mind. You're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning now, examining his teachings. You're investigating them. Then you're reflecting on those teachings now to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice the teachings now, integrating them into your life and training your mind. And because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you see the results now in this life. You see the mind gradually becoming more and more peaceful and more joyful. So welcome to all of you guys. I'm very pleased that you're here to learn. The topic today is from chapter 20 of our book, this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This book is the book that we use for this program as a 7-month program where I'm gradually guiding students through learning and practicing the teachings. In this chapter 20 is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is where you're learning about the cycle of rebirth, just kind of getting students started to understand the cycle of rebirth. When a student first starts on the path to enlightenment, I suggest to them to set the cycle of rebirth to the side and don't even look at it or don't even address it, because there's so many other teachings that you need to learn and understand before you ever get to the point where you're starting to look at the cycle of rebirth. There's teachings like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. There's the 3 poisons, the natural law of Gamma. There's learning and practicing meditation, the 10 fetters. All of these things need to be learned and practiced. And this is the core fundamental teachings that you need to be able to start training the mind to eradicate certain pollutions that are in the mind, uplifting those and eliminating them from the mind, so that then you can start to experience more and more peace and more joy. But there does become a point in time in your growth on the path to enlightenment where it starts to make sense that you start looking at the cycle of rebirth and starting to understand it to a certain degree. And as you start to dive into it and you start to understand it more and more, as you gain the wisdom of it, you can independently verify that it's true, that you are experiencing multiple lives over and over and over again. Oftentimes people believe things, but you shouldn't believe anything, including believing that you only have one life. You shouldn't believe that. You should look for evidence to see that you only have one life. And if you only think that you have one life because you can't currently remember your past lives, you might see that as you're training your mind and you're uplifting the pollution out of your mind, that you have memories of your past lives. This is very common as you're starting to train your mind on the path to enlightenment. So the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth for a reason, because it's the truth. And he's explaining to you the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's not giving you a bunch of views or opinions. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And if you don't understand the way the world is, your mind can easily be shaken up. So when you're starting to train your mind with his core fundamental teachings and you're eradicating the pollution of your mind, if you started observing your past lives and started having memories of this could really shake you up if you didn't understand that this is completely normal. So for example, if in this life you started having these profound memories that you were murdered in the past, and you know it wasn't in this life that you were murdered, but you started having these profound memories that you have been murdered, or maybe you were sexually abused, or any other number of things like this that can have occurred in your past lives. If you start having deep memories of those things and you don't realize they're in your past, you could be really shaken up by these things. Or as you're starting to lift the pollution out of your mind, if you start having communication from beings from the various realms, like the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, which are like ghosts, or the heavenly realm, and you start getting communication and you start hearing voices that other people don't hear, you might think that you're going crazy. But this is completely normal, that somebody can start experiencing these things as you're starting to lift the pollution out of your mind. You can hear communication from beings from other realms. Or if you start seeing these beings, because these beings are formless beings, the hell beings, the afflicted spirit beings, and the heavenly beings. Oftentimes we think about these beings being really far away in other places, but they're all in the same time and space as us. So it's very likely that as you're lifting the pollution out of your mind, that there's the potential that you could see some of these beings, right? So if you started having memories of past lives, if you started having communication with beings in other realms, or you started seeing beings in other realms that you've never seen before, and you start observing that, not realizing that it's completely normal and it's based on the cycle of rebirth, you could easily be shaken up by this. But if you understand it's normal and the Buddha explains the cycle of rebirth to you, then when you start having these experiences, you might need to reach out to a teacher for help or for guidance, but nonetheless, you'll be able to understand that these things are completely normal. So I'm going to introduce you to the cycle of rebirth today, helping you to understand what the 5 realms are and what you experience in those 5 realms. And I'm going to explain to you this evolution of our consciousness and why human beings oftentimes function very much like animals. We're not animals. We are human beings, but our consciousness has been conditioned by many animal existences. So the unenlightened mind in the human state functions very much like an animal. And what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're becoming a better and better human being. You're shedding these animalistic instincts. So by understanding that the human consciousness has been conditioned by these multiple animal existences, when you start to notice these animalistic instincts that are occurring in this human state, you can learn to shed those, becoming a better and better human being, where you can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings around you, where you can have love and kindness and compassion for all beings. You can treat all beings equally. But you're not going to be able to do that as long as your mind has this conditioning from your past existences. So as we go today, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. I'm going to pause at some different times, opening up to questions. For those of you guys here at the temple, if you'd like to ask questions, we have microphones in this white bowl in front of the camera. You just need to get a microphone, press the gray button. You'll see the lights will come on, and then just hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online, so everybody can participate this way. And for those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. In the comment section, I'll be able to see that and answer your questions for you. Or if you're in Zoom, you have the added functionality of electronically raising your hand and asking any and all questions that you like. As you're here at the temple, if you'd like to make yourself more comfortable, we have a bathroom in the back of the room, the very last door on the right. You're welcome to get up and use that at any time. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go outside to the parking lot, you'll see the signs that take you around to the main temple bathrooms. And we even have water and snacks over here that are provided by our students. There's even some juice I see over there. So help yourself to any of that stuff over there. Make yourself comfortable and feel free to ask any and all questions that you like. So first, let's talk about the problems in the unenlightened mind. These are things that students would have learned in this program already before they've gotten to this point, because now we're in chapter 20. There's something called craving, anger, and ignorance, or some people refer to it as greed, hatred, and delusion. This is what's causing the mind to experience difficulties and struggles. These are the high-level descriptions of the pollutions in the mind. We refer to them as the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. Whenever you're making decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results. What craving is, just in a summary form, is this is where the mind is longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection. It's wanting things to be a certain way. It's craving, it's longing, it's yearning, it's having these desires, it's having these expectations of others. The mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So when the mind has these selfish desires, it's almost like an unquenchable thirst, that the mind just wants something. And if it gets that thing that it wants, then it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, then there's this anger or this hatred that can arise, this bitterness and hostility. And now when the anger is arising, the mind becomes unskillful. And this is where you might push people away, or you might push a situation away. This is called aversion, and the mind thinks that this solves the problem, but it actually doesn't. Or you might become unskillful in your intentions, your speech, and your actions, being bitter and harsh and hostile. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear that other animal into doing things your way. Like if you're a lion and another lion is doing something that you don't want it to do, you might growl and roar at this other lion until this other lion submits to what it is that you want it to do. And in the unenlightened state, with craving in the mind and wanting things to be a certain way, this is what the mind will do when the anger is arising. It will falsely attribute this anger to something external, thinking that somebody else is causing you to be angry. And you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to that person, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or you might put your expectations on somebody, trying to control them to do things a certain way. And this anger that is arising, it's being caused by the craving. It's the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. So if you get something the way you want, you'll get happy and excited. But if you don't get what you want, you get angry or sad or frustrated or some other painful feeling. And the mind is falsely attributing these painful feelings to something external. You might think your mom is causing you to be angry, or your brothers or sisters, or your dad or your boss, or your life partner, or your children. But these people aren't what's causing you to be angry. What's causing you to be angry is the cravings, desires, attachments, wanting things to be a certain way permanently, and the mind's craving and longing and yearning. If your bank account is this balance, you'll be happy. But if it goes down, you'll be sad. Or if it's sunny outside, you might be happy, but then when it rains, you'll be sad or frustrated. Or if your mom does this, you'll be happy, but if she does this, you'll be angry or frustrated. This is the mind's craving, desire, attachment. It's happening within your own mind. But because of the lack of wisdom and the mind doesn't understand this, it will falsely attribute these painful feelings to something external. And the reason why it's doing that is because of this third poison or this third unwholesome root or this third fire that's oftentimes referred to as ignorance. I tend to use the phrase the unknowing of true reality because this is a better way to understand this, that it's the mind having confusion or misunderstanding or a lack of wisdom, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind firmly believes in the unenlightened state that somebody else is causing you to be angry. But you can independently verify for yourself that this isn't true. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. There was something your mind wanted. And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy or excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you experienced anger or sadness or frustration or some other discontent feeling. This is what the mind does, that it has these cravings, this unquenchable thirst of wanting things to be a certain way. And because you live in an impermanent world, meaning things are constantly changing, you can't get what you want permanently. It's just not possible. So essentially, the unenlightened mind is sabotaging itself. It's sabotaging itself from being able to experience the peace and the joy because of this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom, that this lack of wisdom is hindering you from being able to see the truth of what's really truly occurring. And that's what a Buddha does. A Buddha awakens to these natural laws, helping you to understand what's causing your mind to be discontent. And then when you independently verify his teachings, you can see the truth for yourself, that it is your own mind that's causing you to be angry. Every single time you've ever been angry or sad or frustrated or any other discontent feeling in your entire life, it's being caused by your own mind, where we will adamantly argue in the unenlightened state with other people. And we will try to convince them that they have to stop doing what they're doing because they are making you angry. But this is just because of the lack of wisdom. And again, you can be bitter and harsh and hostile with people, being aggressive with them, trying to convince them that they have to stop what they're doing because otherwise you're going to keep getting angry over and over. But in reality, it's the mind craving for things to be a certain way. So this is what's causing the problem in the mind. And you can see this as it relates to an animal, that an animal is experiencing the same thing because an animal is not enlightened. An animal has cravings, desires, attachments, a longing, yearning. Like just think about a simple dog at a house. Right? A dog craves for nobody to come into its land. And then as soon as you get close to its land, it becomes discontent. Rah, 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 rah. Right? It's going to start barking at you because it's craving that permanence. It doesn't want to see anybody that it doesn't know in front of its house. And when you walk in front of its house, it doesn't know you and now it barks. It becomes discontent. Right? This is the craving, anger, and ignorance. And human beings have this as well. But it's to a lesser degree than an animal. An animal has craving, anger, and ignorance at a much higher degree than a human being. But because of our conditioning and countless animal existences, we're born into this world with these pollutions in the mind. We don't have anger and hatred when we're born into the world, but we have craving and we have ignorance. Other things that are being experienced because of our conditioning in the animal existence is what's called personal existence view and conceit. This is oftentimes referred to as the ego. In the animal realm, we have to have personal existence view and conceit. Without that, we wouldn't actually be able to survive. What personal existence view is where you're clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now if you spill something on your clothing, for example, you'll get embarrassed when you're at a social event. And that's because your mind is clinging to this self-image, thinking that this is who you are. Or you have a certain self-identity in the mind, like I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am Canadian, or I am Spanish, or I am Polish, or any of this I am Brazilian, right? Or I am Dominican. Any of this I am around your culture, your ethnicity, maybe your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. Your mind might be holding on to this identity, thinking that this is who you are. And now if you hear something that is agreeable to you, you'll experience the pleasant feelings like happiness or excitement. But if you hear things that are disagreeable to you, maybe they say all Americans are this, or all Chinese people are this, or all Polish people are that, and they're talking in a negative and degrading way, if you identify with that's who you are as a person, you will get angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed because you're clinging to this identity of this is who you are as a person. We needed that in the animal realm. We needed as a deer to be clinging to this body because when this predator comes to our area, we needed to bolt and we needed to run out of the way, right? We needed to get away from this predator. And that's what we needed in the animal realm. We also needed this conceit. What conceit is the arrogance, the pride, the measuring and comparing, putting yourself above people and below people, judging others. This is something that the human mind does too, where we look at other beings and we judge them and put ourselves above or below them. In the animal realm, we needed this because in the animal realm, we needed to know where are we in the pecking order because it was good for our survival. When we were a herd of elephants, we needed to know who's the matriarch of our herd because she was teaching us where is the food, where is the watering holes, where is the migration paths that we need to migrate from different season to different season. If we didn't know who the matriarch of our herd was, we wouldn't have survived because we would just be off in the jungle roaming without any guidance to understand where to eat, where the water is, and where the migration paths are. When we were a pack of wolves, we needed to know who's the alpha male and who's the alpha female because they're teaching us how to hunt and survive, right? And if we didn't know who that was, we wouldn't have learned how to be a very good wolf to be able to survive in this pack. So in the animal realm, we need conceit. We need to know who's above us and who's below us. But when we come into the human realm, the mind is still doing this. The mind is still trying to figure out who's above me and who's below me. And we don't need that in the human realm, because we can treat everybody equally and just see everybody as equal. But the mind holding on to this conditioning from the animal realm will be looking for this pecking order whenever you're in a certain situation. And now your mind is constantly trying to figure out who's above me and who's below me. And you might talk to some people, you might talk down to them with arrogance and pride, but then in other cases, you might be putting yourself below people. And now you're shaken up and you're uncalm in those situations. Maybe when you're around your boss, you feel like less of a person and you're shaken up around that person. Or maybe when you meet a celebrity or maybe a famous politician, you might be shaken up around that person because you see yourself as being below them. But you don't need to do this in the human realm, and you'll function much better when you don't have this conceit. Because when you have conceit and you're arrogant and boastful and prideful, people are going to push you away because they don't want to be around you. And you can't be calm and peaceful when you're around and you're trying to constantly figure out who's above you and who's below you. So this conceit doesn't serve any wholesome purpose for you. But in our animal existences, we needed it in order to survive. And that's the reason why it's still in the mind today in this human existence. There's current things that you experience in your current life in previous lives that have conditioned the mind. The mind has been conditioned to think a certain way and to have certain beliefs. And these beliefs are false beliefs that are going to hinder you from being able to experience the peace and the joy and the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind. And the more that you get this conditioning out of the way, then the brightness and the radiance of enlightenment can shine through. But this conditioning or this pollution that the mind has taken on through countless animal existences, now that the mind is here in the human realm, the mind holds on and retains this conditioning. But you can shed all of this and you can purify the mind of this conditioning. It just takes wisdom to understand what these animal existences have done and why the mind is conditioned the way it is and what the pollutions are and what are the tools and techniques to eradicate these pollutions from the mind. So there's certain conditioning that the mind takes on, not only in your previous lives, but in your current life too. That if you were around adults growing up as a child that were angry and bitter and harsh and hostile, that your mind might have conformed to that. I know when I was growing up, my family was quite bitter and harsh and hostile. And I learned at a very early age that if you wanted somebody to do something for you, you yelled and hollered and screamed at them and you put fear into that person, and then they would do what you want them to do. But this is the animalistic instincts that we have. Even though we're in the human realm, we function very much like animals in the unenlightened state. But moving to enlightenment, your mind is becoming more and more pure, and you can become a better and better human being where you understand you don't have to yell and scream at people. You don't have to put fear into people, that you can just ask, you can just be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, and people are either going to choose to do something or not. And you can just understand and train your mind and learn and grow and develop and get to the point where your mind's always peaceful and always joyful. But as long as there's this conditioning in the mind, you won't be able to do that. So this cycle of rebirth, it explains the continuous rebirth that we experience, and it also explains the continuous difficulties that one experiences through sickness, aging, and death. When you're sick, you might really struggle in this situation because of the craving, because the mind's craving permanent health. And now it really struggles during this period of time. And if you have a craving for permanent health, you live in an impermanent world. You can't be permanently healthy. Or if you crave permanent youthfulness and you want to always be youthful, then when you age, you'll really struggle with that. Or if you crave permanent life, now as you're getting close to death, you will struggle during that period of time. But you live in an impermanent world, so you can't have permanent health. You can't have permanent youthfulness, and you can't have permanent life. And the people around you can't either. So not only will you might struggle with your sickness, aging, and death, but you might struggle with other people's sickness, aging, and death. If you're attached to your parents, for example, and they're sick, or you see them aging, or they're getting close to death, or they have died, you might really struggle and have grief and sadness during this period of time. It's not your love that's causing you to experience the grief and the sadness during this period of time. It's the mind's craving. It's the mind holding on, wanting things to be permanent. But yet you live in an impermanent world. This is the lack of wisdom that the mind has, is that it doesn't realize that it lives in an impermanent world. And the mind isn't trained. It keeps craving permanence, just like the animal world. In the animal world, their mind is craving permanence. So this cycle of rebirth that the Buddha taught us, he taught it for a reason, because it helps us to understand the way the world is. That when we start eradicating pollution out of the mind, if you have observation of past lives, if you have communication with beings from other realms, if you start to see beings from other realms, you can understand that this is completely normal. So what I'm going to do is help you understand these 5 realms so that you'll understand what they are, and that as you're starting to train your mind more and more through the teachings of the Buddha, you might observe these past lives, you might have communication with beings from these realms, or you might even see these beings. Some people, even without training their mind, have experienced communication with these beings or seen these beings, or otherwise have seen evidence of past lives. So I'm going to start with the heavenly realm, but then we're going to talk about the human realm, afflicted spirits, the animal realm, and the hell realm. And then I'll pause and open up to any and all questions that you guys have once we get to the end of this part. And then we'll have some more to share after that. So this heavenly realm, it's what's considered to be a formless realm, where there's no physical form for these beings. For all of us, we have physical form, but the heavenly realm, they don't have any physical form. They're a formless being. And all of these realms, because we call them realms, sometimes people think they're really far away and they're in a distant place, but they're actually all here in the same time and space. Just like a human being is sitting here now, I could get up and leave, and then maybe there'd be a dog that would come in and sit here, right? The same thing is the heavenly beings, the afflicted spirits, and the hell beings. They're all right here in the same time and space. They're not in some far distant world somewhere. So these heavenly beings are right here, right now, in the same time and space as us. They're experiencing only pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. They can cultivate their mind to attain enlightenment and develop their consciousness, but they oftentimes lack motivation because they tend to be complacent, because they're only experiencing pleasant feelings. right? They only experience the happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. They don't experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. We experience that in the human realm, and it tends to be our motivation to be able to get to enlightenment. But in the heavenly realm, even though they can get to enlightenment, oftentimes they don't, because this realm of heaven, it's not permanent. You can see in the world around you the universal truth of impermanence, that things are constantly changing and nothing around you is permanent. So the idea that heaven is a permanent existence is people's lack of wisdom and unknowing of true reality. That the goal of the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about believing a bunch of things and then going to a great place and getting to heaven, and then that's a permanent existence. That's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught to get to peacefulness and joy now in this life. And you're able to do that when you understand the wisdom of how to do that in training your mind. So this existence in the heavenly realm, it's not ideal. It's not the place that you would like to be because it's not permanent, and those beings are experiencing complacency, and they oftentimes don't do what they need to do in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So from the heavenly realm, they're oftentimes reborn into other realms. You can move from the heavenly realm down into the lower realms of hell and a more afflicted spirit, or into the human realm, or you can be reborn back into the heavenly realm as well. So it's not like it's a permanent existence and you're done at that point. You're still in the cycle of rebirth when you're in the heavenly realm. Then there's the human realm, which you guys are very familiar with. You're familiar with this human realm because you're experiencing it right now. The human realm experiences pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings is that happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. The painful feelings are the anger, the sadness, the frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful to experience. The neither painful nor pleasant, that's like shyness. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you were sitting on public transportation and somebody was sitting really close to you that you didn't know, and your body was touching their body. Maybe you would say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, maybe you're just uncomfortable in that situation. That's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings, okay? So human beings experience all three of those. We can cultivate our consciousness to attain enlightenment. We have the ability to develop our consciousness and actually move the mind to the enlightened mental state. And we tend to have more motivation to do so because we don't like those painful feelings. And we don't like the neither painful nor pleasant feelings either. We really like those pleasant ones, that happiness and excitement, but we don't like those painful ones, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the guilt, the shame, the resentment, the hostility. We don't like any of that. So we tend to be motivated to get to enlightenment, and it tends to be built-in motivation. So essentially the human existence is the ideal existence because you have the motivation and you have the ability to get to enlightenment. Where in the heavenly realm, they don't have that. Then there's the afflicted spirit realm. Some people might refer to this as ghost. This is something that you can independently verify, just like all the rest of these realms. These individuals that are in the afflicted spirit realm, they experience painful feelings and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They don't experience happy feelings or pleasant feelings in that particular realm. They cannot cultivate their consciousness to attain enlightenment. They can develop to a certain degree to the point where they're reborn into the human realm or into the heavenly realm, but they can't get to enlightenment from that existence in the afflicted spirit realm. So they're not able to actually get to enlightenment. They have extensive amounts of craving, desire, attachment to people, places, and possessions. This is where some people say, my house is haunted. What really is going on is there's a being that lived in that house potentially or had some connection to that house. They died and now they're still holding on. They're still attached. They're still craving to the people, the possessions, or to some particular place, right? So these afflicted spirits, it's not an ideal existence. We consider these to be the lower realms. From afflicted spirits, animal realm, and hell realm, we refer to those as the lower realms because you can't get to enlightenment from those realms. Then there's the animal realm, which you guys also might be somewhat familiar with. The animal realm are beings that are all in the animal world. They experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant, just like human beings. But they don't have the ability to cultivate their consciousness to be able to get to enlightenment. Again, they can evolve a bit, but left on their own, animals tend to not evolve very much. Animals that are involved with human beings, we can train them and we can help them to evolve a bit more because our consciousness is able to train them. But left to their own devices, an animal won't actually receive training because they're out there being an animal. But even as an animal, if you had like a pack of monkeys, there's going to be some monkeys that are more bitter and harsh and hostile and aggressive. And there's going to be some that are a little bit more loving, a little bit more kind. So you can evolve to a certain degree as an animal, but you can't get to the point where you actually attain enlightenment. And from the animal realm, a lot of beings come from that realm into the human realm. But you need to be reborn countless times within the animal realm to give you an opportunity to cultivate your consciousness to a certain degree to be able to then come into the human realm. So for example, if I was a lion or a tiger, I'm out there killing and being fierce and hurting other animals. It's very challenging from that existence to get into a human existence. So I would need to be reborn around countless animals until maybe like I'm a rabbit or I'm an elephant or a turtle or something like this, until eventually my consciousness can evolve and develop in that existence enough to then become a human being. But a lot of humans are coming out of the animal realm, and this is why we see our consciousness in the animal existence or in the human existence is very much like an animal. So animals have no motivation because they're to get to enlightenment because they're operating on these basic survival instincts. As an animal, we tend to kill, we tend to steal, we tend to fight, we tend to play, we tend to have sex, a lot of sex with different animals, and we tend to sit around and just relax and pretty much do nothing. This is kind of what an animal does. And because of those basic survival instincts, that's what they're operating on, is their craving to survive. And that's how they function in their day-to-day life. And now the hell realm, these beings are experiencing only exclusively painful feelings. That's all they experience is the anger, the sadness, the frustration, the despair, the misery. That's what they're experiencing in the hell realm. They can't cultivate their consciousness enough to attain enlightenment, but they can evolve a little bit enough to get to like the animal realm or the afflicted spirit realm. They can be reborn from the hell realm right into the human realm. It's very rare, but this actually occurs. And they can also be reborn from the hell realm even into the heavenly realm. Again, very, very rare, but it can actually occur. So there's not like a sequence that an individual needs to go through. They have extensive amounts of craving, desire, attachment, which is that longing, yearning, the selfish desires. There's an extensive amount of anger, hatred, and ill will. This is the bitterness, the hostility, the aggression. And they have extensive amounts of ignorance or unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom. And this is also a formless realm, just like afflicted spirits in the heavenly realm. These are all formless realms. And none of these realms are actually permanent. You're going to be reborn in and out of these realms countless times until an individual gets to enlightenment. And now when they get to enlightenment, they've escaped this whole cycle and they're no longer going to be reborn in this cycle of rebirth. So this is an introduction to the 5 realms of existence. What I'm going to do is open up to any questions that you guys have, either here at the temple or online. As I mentioned, if you guys could use the microphones here. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. So do you guys have any questions on anything I've been sharing so far? Yes, sir.
How do we know that these realms exist? Does it not require a leap of faith, belief? That's the question.
Sure. You should never believe anything, including the cycle of rebirth. The way that we know that these exist is the Buddha explained them to us because he was able to see his past lives. But there's people today that have seen their past lives as well and have confirmed these realms of existence that they actually exist. So, for example, I've actually independently verified multiple ways that these realms exist. That's why I can sit here, look you in the eye, and I know that with 100% certainty these exist. But in order to get to enlightenment, you need to be able to independently verify. You're not believing me, you're not believing the Buddha, you're not believing anybody. And nobody should ever try to convince themselves or convince others that these things are true. But instead, you learned about these kinds of things, and then slowly but surely, you learned the wisdom of how to independently verify it. So if you've ever seen a afflicted spirit, for example, which some people have, a ghost, they know with 100% certainty that realm exists, right? Or if they've had contact with heavenly beings, they know that that realm exists 100%, or hell beings. I know that you've confirmed the animal realm because you've seen plenty of animals, and you've confirmed the human realm because these are form realms. But these formless realms, you might not have seen beings from those realms, or you might not have had communication with those beings yet. But if this is occurring as you're purifying your mind, you'll be able to independently verify the existence of these realms. But more after I talk here in a moment, you'll be able to see a bit more about how the human consciousness has been conditioned by these different realms, and you'll be able to start seeing it a little bit more clearly. But again, it's not based in belief, it's through independent verification of these beings existing and having communication with these beings. That's how we're able to independently confirm it.
Thank you. Can I ask another question?
Sure. You can ask as many as you like.
In the animal realm, what about rebirth in the plant or a bacteria or any other life? Why only animal?
So a plant or bacteria or a virus, these aren't living beings. When you learn what's called the 5 aggregates, this is helping you to understand what is a living being. What the 5 aggregates are is it explains to you what are the 5 things that every living being has. A living being has 5 things. They have physical form, they have feelings, they have perceptions, volitional formations, and a consciousness. You understand physical form. Feelings are those pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. The perceptions are views and opinions about the world that may or may not be true, things that the world seems to be. Volitional formations are your choices and decisions. You have free will. Then the consciousness is the mind itself. So every living being is going to have these 5 things. But you can look at a plant and you can see that they don't have those 5 aggregates. So even though someone might say that a plant is alive, or they might say, I'm going to kill a plant, this is part of the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom, that the mind is using language that isn't actually fitting, it isn't actually appropriate, because the mind doesn't understand true reality, that this plant is not a living being. Or like a bacteria or a virus, we might say, I'm going to kill a bacteria or kill a virus. But in reality, what we're truly doing is we're harvesting this plant, or we're eliminating a bacteria, or we're eliminating a virus. And you can see this because if you harvest a plant or if you eliminate a bacteria, there's no unwholesome results that come to you. If these things are living beings, you're going to experience unwholesome results. For example, if you killed a living being, you're going to experience unwholesome results. If you killed another human being, you're going to have a lot of unwholesome results. Or if you killed an animal, you're going to experience a certain amount of unwholesome results. But if you harvest a tree, or you eliminate a bacteria, or you eliminate a virus, you're actually experiencing wholesome results, because your body is now healthy, that you've eliminated a bacteria and a virus. So it's producing wholesome results. So you need to be able to study the 5 aggregates and see that they're not part of the cycle of rebirth. If you're a plant, a virus, a bacteria, these things aren't living beings, but these are the 5 realms of existence. So that's why individuals are being reborn within this cycle of rebirth. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could I ask one more question?
You can ask as many as you like.
Okay. So in order to independently verify it, you would need to, for example, remember a past life. Just as an example. Is that correct?
There's 17 different ways that I've shared that actually help you to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. One of the surefire ways is that if you do see your past lives, Absolutely. You will independently confirm that without a doubt. You'll be able to see that very clearly. But that's only one of 17 ways that you can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. So if you are interested in verifying this today, I would direct you to volume 11, chapter 105, and you'll need to download it from our website because these books right here, they were printed out several months ago and they don't have the updated version. So I've recently added, about 6 months ago, I added these 17 ways that you can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. And you can read that and you can learn that, and then you can look for yourself, and then you can let me know what questions you have. One of the ways I'll explain to you is one of the things out of those 17 is like deja vu. Have you ever experienced deja vu?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so deja vu is where you have a memory now of something that has occurred in the past, but you know that this wasn't in this life. You're doing something now and it feels so familiar to you, but you know it wasn't in this life that you did that. This is residual memories coming to the surface of your mind, and it's helping you to be able to see that you've had past lives. So oftentimes when that occurs, people push it aside or they discount it, but this is actually just one of the 17 ways that you can independently verify that you've experienced previous lives.
Thank you. What was the name of or what chapter and what volume?
It's volume 11, chapter 105. And what you'd like to do is download it from our website because that'll be the most current version. These printed versions, I think they were printed out about 1 year, 2 years ago. So the Cycle of Rebirth, volume 11, hasn't been printed out since I added this new content. So you would like to download it from our website and you'll be able to see it there. Volume 11, chapter 105. I think some other people have questions.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Is there any alien talk with the Buddha? Like anything, you know how sometimes in other countries people have pyramids and aliens and these paranormal kind of things. Mm-hmm. Any mention of these in the Buddha and in observations in his travels, or I don't know, with pyramids, aliens, weird things that are out there, like say in these realms, also talking about like exorcism and demons and things, anything in his books? Or
I've never seen anything where the Buddha is talking about existence of beings on other planets, but we have people today, quite a few, that talk about this. What I would suggest is that what I know about these beings, even though I've never encountered one, is that they appear to fit into the human realm. And they seem to be a lot more evolved than we are, if this is actually true, because they're actually able to come here. They're actually able to visit us and go back to wherever it is that they're from, and we can't even find them in the world. So they seem to be quite a bit more evolved than us. So they would fit into the human realm based on this, because the Buddha explains the cycle of rebirth, and this is universally true across, all of the universe, essentially. Helena, you have a question?
So how do we know that formless beings reside in the same time and space versus they could just be visiting from some other dimension?
Yeah, so if you ever have contact with these beings where you see them or you hear them or you're able to communicate with them, you'll be able to see that they're all here in the same time and space as us, and they're constantly around. Right now, there could be heavenly beings here, and if someone isn't able to see them or hear them, you wouldn't even know. And there can also be hell beings and afflicted spirit beings as well. They're all right here in the same time and space because you'll be able to see them regularly or hear them regularly, as you potentially might have that ability or not. Some people have that ability and some people don't.
Okay, thank you. And I suppose that humans have a wider range of feelings than animals, right?
Humans and animals have the same types of feelings: pleasant, painful, and neither painful nor pleasant. So whether an animal has the entire spectrum of feelings, I don't know 100%, but based on my experience, I think that they do. They have a lot of the same feelings that we have in those same 3 categories.
Okay, but for example, like being in awe of beauty of the world, do they experience something like that?
I suspect that they do. They're not maybe processing it in the same way as us, but if you've ever seen an animal come to a certain area and just kind of look and be kind of amazed about what they're seeing, you can see some animals have that.
Okay. And you mentioned that it would be very rare but possible for a hell being to be reborn into heaven. Mm-hmm. Do you know of any stories, like any being that achieved that?
I don't personally know, but I know the Buddha talks about this in his teachings. He says how rare it is for this to occur, but that it can occur. So this is important to understand, because sometimes when people see this, they think that maybe you have to start in hell and then you work your way up to the animal realm and then you work your way up to afflicted spirits and you work your way up the human realm. It's not sequential like this, that beings can move in and out of these realms at any different time. And that's helping you to be able to see.
Okay. And lastly, is it easier to be reborn as a human from the animal realm or from the afflicted spirits realm?
Would be easier to move from afflicted spirits to the human realm, because those beings aren't killing and stealing and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's easier to move from the afflicted spirit realm to the human realm, because those beings aren't killing and stealing and having sexual misconduct, because they're formless beings. They're not doing those kinds of things. Where in the animal realm, these natural laws are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. So killing and stealing and having sexual misconduct are three things that animals do extensively. And this is affecting them in harmful ways. And because they're all, mainly doing it just for survival. So it's a lot harder to get from the animal realm up to the human realm. So the Buddha describes the animal realm and the hell realm, which I agree with, as like a prison, that once you're there, it's very hard to get out of it. But the afflicted spirit realm, it's much easier to move up from there than from the hell realm or the animal realm, because in that animal realm, you're having to just kill in order to survive, and you're generating a whole lot of unwholesome karma in that particular realm. But not all animals do that, right? Elephants, they don't kill in order to eat and survive. Rabbits, they don't kill in order to survive. Squirrels, they don't kill in order to survive. So as you're bouncing around in these different animal existences, getting into an animal existence where you don't have to kill to survive is really helpful for you to be able to cultivate your consciousness and potentially get into the human realm. So animals are oftentimes reborn into the human realm. And we see this today. We see a lot of this occurring where beings are coming from the animal realm into the human realm. Mm-hmm. You have a question, sir?
Yeah. Just a quick observation. You said we could live many lives. Mm-hmm. Why does it seem to be the default is that we don't remember of any of our past lives?
The only reason why we don't remember is because our mind is hindered by the pollutions that we experience. This is why you don't even remember maybe what you ate for breakfast yesterday, right? Because the mind has pollution that it's hindered. So as you clear out this pollution using the teachings of the Buddha, that's where someone oftentimes will see past lives. And that's one of the reasons why he's teaching it. In fact, I know you guys have more questions, but this is a great transition into this next thing that I usually talk about, which is helping you guys to understand how you see past lives. But I'll still open up for questions. But let me explain this since it relates to this question. Essentially, as you're clearing out the pollution of your mind, it's like moving to a higher vantage point. That if you walked out of your house and you were on one particular street, you can only see that street because you just walked out of your house, right? But if you start clearing up your mind, you start eradicating the pollution of your mind, it's like relocating to this higher vantage point. And now with this higher consciousness, because your mind's more purified, you can now see how these streets interconnect. And you can see how one town connects to another town. And it's like standing up here and seeing more of your current life and more of your previous lives too. As you move to this higher and higher consciousness, you start looking back on your current life and you're like, oh my goodness, I've been doing things so unwise. Oh my goodness, all those fights and arguments that I was in, that was my own mind causing that. When I was yelling at mom and I was yelling at dad, oh my goodness, that was my own cravings. Wow. You start seeing more of the truth because you're moving to this higher consciousness. So not only can you see more of this life as you're getting to this higher consciousness, but you can oftentimes see previous lives as well. Not everybody who gets to enlightenment is going to see their past lives and observe their past lives, but a certain portion of the people will, that they'll be able to see their past lives. And it's not something that I ever suggest you induce or that you try to accomplish. if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it will happen through you purifying your mind using things like the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching, that you purify your mind through training your mind with the Eightfold Path. And as that pollution's lifting out, there's the potential to see your past lives, and you'll be able to remember those. But then it's important to remember they're in the past, right? Because there were certain past lives that I saw that it was hindering me in this life to be able to make progress and go forward, because my mind was still holding on to things from the past lives. And then when you recognize like, that's from the past life, I can let that go. I don't need to cling to that. It can help you continue to make progress in this life. Mm-hmm. Helena has a question.
So, do you think that heavenly beings remember their past lives because their mind is less polluted?
Yeah, I would suspect that they do. And that's one of the reasons why they tend to be around people who they were with in the past. So like if there's a human being who was reborn into the heavenly realm, it's very likely that they tend to be around those same people, even when they're in the heavenly realm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Joe, you have another question?
Did the Buddha ever spoke about like people, you know how you see in movies, people that have gifts or whatever, psychics or mediums or clairvoyant, telepathy, all these kind of things that you see and hear in books. Is there any mention of that? And what realm, like what realm would they fit in, or how do they? Yeah.
So a human being can have psychic abilities and see the future. This is a potential that an individual has. And the more awake that you become, the more you're moving to this higher consciousness, you might have this ability to be able to know the future before it occurs. This is called omniscience, where you know things before they actually occur. This is a common thing that human beings experience, and it comes from having a more and more pure mind. And there are some people who, even in the unenlightened state, having never seen these teachings at all, their mind is to a certain point where they can see the future. And the Buddha talks about this, and it's important not to cling to these special abilities and hold on to them. And it's also important not to make money from these things. It's very unwise to do that, because if your mind is making money from fortune telling and stuff like this, and say you've based your life on this for the last 10 or 15 years, well, this ability to see the future, it's not permanent. It will go away at some point. And now you don't have a way to sustain your life if you choose to sustain your life off of charging people money to tell them the future. It also promotes wrong view, and it promotes having people's mind in the future and all these kinds of things as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, more questions? Yep.
What about also how in some countries, like you hear of empaths and energy and these kind of sensibilities, would it relate at all to these kind of, like how you mentioned how everything is around us, right? Mm-hmm. All the different realms. So the people that are kind of gifted and able to see these things, how does the Buddha describe them, or like, I don't know how to.
Everything that you're asking about, it's all happening within the human realm. Okay. And it's just the mind is experiencing certain aspects. So like an empath, this person, essentially what they're doing is they're forming their feelings based on other people's feelings. They're observing other people's feelings. And they oftentimes think of this as a good quality, but it's actually unwise to form feelings for yourself based on someone else's feelings, because that means if someone else is sad, you're sad. If someone else is happy, you're happy. Instead, you would like to get to stability where your mind can be stable all the time, regardless of what's going on around you. But one of the things I'll add here, because you're kind of starting to lean towards this, and it'll actually help you too with confirming the cycle of rebirth. I mentioned to you, there's lots of evidence that you can independently verify and see the cycle of rebirth. In the teachings of the Buddha is explaining the way the world is. If you've ever seen like a 4-year-old child or a 6-year-old child who can maybe play masterful piano. They've never actually seen a piano a day in their life, and they just walk up to a piano and they can play masterful piano. This is residual memories from their past lives that they're able to remember from the past where they were able to play the piano. Or there's people who are like 5 or 6 or 8 years old who can speak a foreign language. Like maybe you were born in Italy, but you can speak Chinese, for example, and you're like perfect at speaking Chinese. You've never learned Chinese a day in your life, but you can speak Chinese, right? This is residual memories from past lives. There's tons of evidence in the world to help you be able to confirm the cycle of rebirth, but oftentimes people aren't looking at it and they aren't connecting the dots because you're believing that you only have one life, but you have no evidence that you only have one life. The only thing that you have is, I can't remember my previous lives at this point in time. But when you start lifting out this pollution of your mind and you start remembering your past lives, this will shake you up if you don't understand that, yeah, it's completely normal to be able to observe your past lives. So there's countless ways to independently verify this cycle of rebirth, and this is just some more of those. So we have a question here on Zoom. I need to take this mic off in order to be able to see it. It looks like it's from Chris. I think it was mentioned in the book series that practitioners can experience time warps. Is it possible to remember and experience long periods of time in a relatively short period of clock time? Have you experienced this before? Can you explain any other aspects of time warps? I'm wondering if it can explain how Gotama Buddha was able to experience multiple eons and multiple lives through his mind in one lifetime. Chris, what I'm explaining there in the book series about a time warp, this is as your mind's getting more and more to a higher consciousness, it can feel like time is standing still, or it can feel like you're just, plowing through time very quickly. That's what I mean by time warp. You can, in your current life, see things from the past or see things in the future as your mind's moving to this higher consciousness, but I wouldn't describe that as a time warp. But what I was mentioning there is just that it feels like things are going very slow or very fast. That's what I was meaning by a time warp. Okay, let me see if we have any questions on Facebook or YouTube. I see something coming in here on YouTube. Again, I need to take this off. It says, how will animal in hell realms come out of those realms as they don't even know how to get out of those realms? So all the natural laws of existence are affecting us whether we're aware of it or not. So a individual doesn't have to know about the cycle of rebirth or the natural laws and that it's unwise to kill and steal in order to be able to evolve and become a better and better being. So like I mentioned early on, you might not have heard me say this, that in like a pack of monkeys, for example, you can have a monkey that is more loving and kind and warm and gentle, but you can also have a monkey that's more hateful and more aggressive. And these are based on individual choices. So this is one of the reasons why in the animal realm, it is like a prison, because they don't have the ability to cultivate their consciousness. And it takes so many existences to be able to get to an improved existence where they can become more loving and kind and warm and gentle, and then ultimately be able to be reborn into something like a human realm or a heavenly realm with an opportunity to get to enlightenment. So we're all affected by these natural laws, whether we're aware of them or not. And in the animal realm, as they're bouncing around to different animal existences, a rabbit, for example, is going to be more loving and kind than a lion, right? And now in that animal existence as a rabbit, their mind is being cultivated a bit because of that existence. So these natural laws are affecting them, but they're not consciously studying teachings because they don't have the ability to do that. But this is one of the reasons why we see more and more human beings in the world right now, because we see the animal realm shrinking and we see the human realm expanding. This is more evidence of the cycle of rebirth. For those of you guys that are looking for evidence of the cycle of rebirth, scientists share with us that 99% of the animals that once existed in the world no longer exist. That what we see is only 1% of the animals that once existed. Well, if that's true, and the cycle of rebirth is true, we would see that there'd be an expansion of the human realm, because those animals that are shrinking down, they have to be reborn somewhere, because they can't get out of the cycle of rebirth from that existence. So we should suspect that these other realms will expand. And now, with animals living more and more side by side with human beings and us training animals, we're seeing more and more animals coming into the human realm. This is why we're seeing our population moving up to 8 billion beings right now, because as we see the animal realm shrinking, the human realm is expanding. So if we have like a dog or a cat, for example, that we're living side by side with, this dog or cat is getting the benefit of having been trained by human beings. There's a case in Cambodia where there was a rat that was trained by the human beings in Cambodia to sniff out landmines. And this rat had sniffed out about 100 landmines during the course of its 6-year life. And it saved a lot of human beings' lives. Because of its loving kindness, because of its compassion, it was able to be trained by human beings to do this task. And now I suspect that that rat was probably reborn into the human realm or into the heavenly realm because of its time and its what it did and its decisions that it made when it was in that human existence. But it would have never accomplished that if it wasn't for the human beings. The rat by itself wouldn't have been able to train itself to sniff out those landmines and help the human population by not stepping on one of these landmines and experiencing death. So this is an example where we see an animal that is cultivating their consciousness with the support and help of a human being. And now those beings that are experiencing that in the animal realm are being reborn into the human realm. And we're seeing this expansion of our human realm because more and more animals are coming up from the animal realm. And we have animals in our homes as well. And this is, in some cases, people who have animals in their homes, they're helping those animals get more and more training and cultivation of their mind. Okay, let me see if we have anything on Facebook. Yeah. You have a question? Oh, you have a question? Yes, sir. What's your question?
Okay, hello, sir. In fact, we talk about animals. I like animals a lot, in fact. And I want to know that what's the difference of the love in animals and the love in people? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the difference between the love of animals and the love of human beings.
Sure. So animals will tend to have affection for individuals who are doing something for them, right? Like as a owner of a dog, for example, that dog will show you affection because you're the one who's giving it food, shelter, medical care, and other things like this. So it'll have affection for you. But it won't have love for all beings because it's an animal. So if there's some person it doesn't know that comes into your home, it might attack that person out of aggression and hostility because it's trying to protect you, because it has craving. A human being can get to the point where you evolve your consciousness to the point where you can love all beings. But an animal isn't able to get to that point because of its lack of ability to cultivate its consciousness. So the love that you experience in a animal existence, it's not actually love. It's not unconditional love. It's craving, desire, attachment. It's, hey, you take care of me and you feed me and I'll treat you well. This is craving, desire, attachment. And this is what the mind tends to do in the human state, in the unenlightened state. With the lack of wisdom, it's like, hey, you do something for me, I will love you. But if you stop doing what I want you to do, I won't love you anymore. This isn't actually love. This is craving, desire, attachment.
So if there
but a human being has the ability to get rid of cravings, desires, attachments, and get to the point where you practice unconditional love, where no one has to meet a certain condition in order for you to love them. So an animal isn't experiencing unconditional love. They're experiencing craving, desire, attachment, where a human being also in the unenlightened state, they're not actually practicing unconditional love. But by the time you become this better and better human being on the path to enlightenment, through training your mind, you can get to the point where you're practicing unconditional love. And in that situation, you will love all beings equally.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Okay. And I have another question. That is, does the Buddhist or believe that there should be, or there is a superpower to make to help the people to less the suffering?
So In the teachings of the Buddha, there's no beliefs whatsoever. You should never believe anything. There are some people that talk about beliefs, but that's not what the Buddha actually taught. He never said, just believe me, or here is something to believe. Instead, he says, come examine my teachings, come investigate them, because you can independently verify his teachings. So there is no belief in the teachings of the Buddha whatsoever. And oftentimes people think that the Buddha didn't teach about what you're referring to, which is a supreme being or like a God. But the Buddha actually did teach about a supreme being and about God. He just didn't make God as a central role in his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you that determines that. So the Buddha put you as the central role in his teachings. So this being of God, they're not the ones who determine what happens on earth. They're not controlling the world. And we all have free will. Everything that we experience is a result of our decisions. And with a lack of wisdom, you will tend to make unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. But when you cultivate wisdom on the path to enlightenment, you will make wise decisions that lead to wholesome results or wholesome karma. Even though this being God does exist, and I've independently verified that this being does exist, this being isn't controlling you or forcing you or changing things in the world for the better. This being doesn't do that.
And I think that a lot of people are limited and decided or influenced by their original family. Maybe their vision, their ideals, their temper, their personality, their ideas are limited by the original families. So how to go out of the limitation of our original family?
That's where you train your mind to eliminate the conditioning that you have. Because as a human being, when you're born into a certain family, you learn how to be a human being from other human beings around you. Your mind conforms to that kind of thing. So you think that, like for me, when I grew up, I saw mom yelling at people and hollering at people, and I thought that this was the way to treat people. So I did that to a certain degree in some situations. But then slowly but surely, I gained wisdom to realize that that's unwise, and that's not the way I should function. So I had to let go of that conditioning of the mind. I had to train my mind to evolve through cultivating wisdom. So the way that you break away from that cultural conditioning or that family conditioning is you purify your mind through training your mind on the path to enlightenment. There's a core central teaching that the Buddha shared called the Eightfold Path, that this is what you need to learn in order to purify your mind and eliminate this clinging and conditioning that it has from your current life, but also your past lives as well. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Having the different realms and hearing how animals, what about people that eat the animals? Is there anything that eat animal? Is there anything related with when you eat the animal? Do you get their painful feelings? Do you get their anger or cravings? Is there anything connected with that cycle of eating animals with the teachings of the Buddha, or as we're all like,
all the feelings that you experience are based in your own mind, based on craving, desire, attachment. Anytime you experience a feeling at all, whether it's pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, it's all being caused by craving, desire, attachment. But when you eat animal flesh, you are eating a flesh of an animal, and there are certain drugs and hormones and toxins that are part of that. And then there's certain chemicals that the animal has released from within its own body that's now stored into the flesh, and you're eating that as well. But that's not producing the feelings. What's producing the feelings is your own craving, desire, attachment. That's what's producing that. But you're affected by the drugs and the hormones and the toxins that were in this animal. And that's why it's unwise to eat animal flesh. But we each have to decide, when or if we're ever interested in moving to a plant-based food supply. But that's one of the unfortunate things that we need to cultivate wisdom about, that it's unwise to eat animal flesh or animal products.
And I know the Buddha didn't teach about the soul, but some people say animals have a soul, they have feelings, so there's no connection when eating individually. The feelings that we feel is our own human realm. There's nothing connected with let's say, oh, I'm feeling an animal feeling because I ate a duck or something, or no,
there's no way for anybody to make you feel a certain way, because if that was the case, you would never be able to get to enlightenment, because other people would be making you feel a certain way. So it's your own mind that's causing this. Animals do have feelings, right? They do have feelings, but they can't transfer their feelings to you, or you can't transfer your feelings to them. It's each individual being that's forming their own feelings. This is what you can see with the teachings of the Buddha. Joel, there's a young lady there that would like to use your mic. Just give it a second.
Okay, thank you. Hello, sir. I want to know, like you said, we're being angry. That's the because our mind, we choose to be angry. But if we only change, but for example, if someone did something terrible to us, we only change the way I think. We only change our mind. Doesn't affect anything in the reality? Like we only change our mind, but if we don't do something, for example, to get back or something, terrible things are still going to happen to us in real life. Like, how can we only change the way I think?
Yeah, so if you cultivate wisdom and you make wise decisions, terrible things aren't going to happen to you in life. Everything that we experience in life is based on our decisions. This is the cause and effect, or the action and result. With a lack of wisdom of this natural law of karma, people might think that what you experience are just random events. But when you look closely at this, you can be able to see that there's always a cause or an action that's leading to a certain effect or a certain result. And that's why by the time you get to enlightenment, you're only experiencing wholesomeness. You don't experience unwholesome things in your life because you're only making wise decisions, and your mind will no longer be shaken up. So the human mind, and even the mind of all these other beings in these different realms, any feelings or emotion that they're experiencing is being caused by their own mind. You could punch me in the face right now and I wouldn't get angry at you. I would move away from you and I wouldn't be interested in being close to you, but I wouldn't get angry. It's impossible for me to experience anger at this point in my life. You can't cause me to have any particular feelings. You can cause harm. You could injure this physical body. You could injure the material possessions that I have. You could injure my reputation and things like that. But that's just causing harm. It's not causing discontentedness or emotions or feelings in the mind. So that's why the Buddha teaches you not to cause harm to others, because unenlightened beings, if you cause them harm, they will get angry and they will get frustrated. And now they're going to want to come at you and they're going to want to harm you. But if you try to cause harm to a being who's trained their mind and is potentially enlightened, they're not going to get angry. Even you punch them in the face, even you kill their mom, you kill their son, their daughter, they're not going to get angry because there's no ability for the anger to arise. We tend to associate these feelings and emotions with things like love. People think that because I love my mom, when she dies, I'm going to be sad. Nope. It's not the love that's causing you to be sad. You're craving permanence. You're wanting mom to be permanent. The love is this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, that you have this active goodwill towards all beings. So it's not possible for other people to cause you to feel any particular way. You just got to be able to study it more closely, because remember, we're in chapter 20 here. You know, there's a lot of chapters that you guys haven't studied. Some of you guys are brand new to the temple. But if you study the original source teachings of the Buddha, what I share with you in this book series and in this program, you'll be able to independently verify how your mind is causing all your own feelings.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry, I have
we have another
one
one?
or two.
Yep.
Okay, and talk about the last life. And I was thinking that in some people they have the super ability to see their last life. So is the person who has this ability to see their last life, they say the last life every time the same, or every time different? I mean, if every time the same, maybe they have connection with the last life. If every time they're not the same, maybe that is the recall of the subconscious. So it's like a dream. So I was curious about that.
I'm not sure if I understand 100%. Are you saying that if someone is in an existence now, in a human existence, and they see their past life, the one right before this, are you asking me, is that a dream or?
No, I mean, if the people, they have the ability to say their last life, so is it possible for that is just kind of subconscious recall?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so by the time you start observing your past lives, you no longer have a subconscious mind. That you train your mind through the Eightfold Path and you get into what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are preliminary phases that the mind goes through before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. In the second jhana, you have what's called unification of the mind or oneness of mind, where there's no longer a subconscious mind and a conscious mind, that instead that you now have full awareness of the entire mind. So you are recalling residual memories from your previous lives that are stored in your mind. The way that you guys can think about this is like, say you have life 1 or life A, you have this cardboard box A, and this is a certain mind. In this cardboard box, it's a certain color, certain shape, a certain texture, but there's contents in this cardboard box. There's cravings and residual memories. When this cardboard box dissolves, when this mind is dissolved because it's impermanent, those contents have to go somewhere. The cravings and residual memories need to go somewhere. So they go into this new mind, cardboard box B. And now cardboard box B is a different color, different shape, different texture. It's a completely different cardboard box. But yet the cravings and residual memories are in there. So now this being can remember the things from the previous life because you now have these cravings and residual memories. So if cardboard box is Adam, and Adam has now died, the body's dissolved, the mind's dissolved, the cravings and residual memories go into this new cardboard box B, which we'll call Bob. And now Bob is experiencing certain things in this life, but Bob also has the cravings and residual memories from Adam. And now Bob can remember the life of Adam. And this is how you experience that. And it's not part of the, or if it was part of the subconscious, by the time you start experiencing observation of past lives, you now have full awareness of the entire mind. So the subconscious mind are residual memories. That's what it is. It's not fake. It's not immaterial. It's actually truly there. It's not imagination. That's not part of what is being experienced when you observe your past lives. It's not an imagination. So for me, I never believed in the cycle of rebirth ever. When I started understanding, or actually I knew that the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth, but I didn't know anything about what he taught. And I never believed it. I just set it to the side. But then at one point, I started having all these residual memories and all these different things about past lives, and I never understood it. And it really shook me up. And then at some point I started reading the teachings of the Buddha. It was about 3 months later, 4 months later. And I was like, whoa, he's explaining exactly what I experienced. So it wasn't that I learned the teachings of the Buddha. My mind was conditioned to have these experiences. Instead, I had these experiences first. And then when I read the teachings of the Buddha, it explained what I experienced. And that's how I knew that they were true. It was like, that's exactly what I experienced, exactly what he's talking about.
I have another, sorry. And do most of the Buddhists, they think Buddhism are a kind of truth or a kind of philosophy? If they think it's kind of more like a philosophy, then does the truth very important for them, the exact truth?
Everybody who considers what they're doing to be Buddhism is doing oftentimes very different things. And oftentimes it's not even what the Buddha taught. So in the world, we have about 500 million people who consider themselves to be Buddhist. But out of that 500 million people, I would say less than 1% is actually studying with the original words of the Buddha. There's very few people. And based on their level of understanding of the teachings, they can think one thing versus another. But what I'm teaching here, what I teach to the students who study with me, is that what they're looking to do is cultivate wisdom. I teach them, don't believe anything I say, don't believe anything that's in the books I write, don't believe anything about anything. Instead, you got to learn You got to reflect, independently verify, and practice. And then you get to wisdom. And now you know the truth. And when you know the truth about the natural laws of existence, you'll understand this world that you live in. Because when you're angry and sad and frustrated and having all those other discontent feelings, your mind's struggling and having difficulties because you don't understand the world that you live in. So in order to awaken to enlightenment, you need to get to truth. You need to get to wisdom. That's what it means to awaken, is that your mind is now able to clearly see the natural laws, and now you can clearly understand the world that you live in, and you can navigate it more peacefully because you have wisdom of these natural laws. It's the same thing you did with the natural law of gravity. You don't believe in the natural law of gravity. You know that it's true. But when you were a child, you lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity. So you struggled and you had difficulties. You fell down, you hit your head, you broke your toys, you cried, you were upset because you didn't understand. You had this lack of wisdom. You got discontent. But slowly but surely, you gained wisdom of this natural law of gravity. You didn't believe that. You saw it for yourself. And now that you have the wisdom, you can navigate the world more peacefully, and you don't fall down, and you don't have the difficulties with the natural law of gravity that you once did. But there's these other natural laws that your mind's unawakened to. And now what the Buddha is teaching you is how to awaken to those by getting to truth and cultivating wisdom through examining his teachings and independently verifying them and practicing them.
Thank
Yes, ma'am.
So you have mentioned that the animal love is maybe a craving, and the love for mom maybe is craving. So how can I distinguish the true love and the craving?
Sure. We're a little bit off topic, but I will help you, okay? Because this is a common question that people ask. And I have a whole chapter 15, that I discuss this. Okay, so in the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, we have something called craving, desire, attachment in our mind that's masquerading as love. The mind thinks that I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. Right? You might meet somebody, maybe when you met your husband, you guys first met, you were attracted to each other, maybe physically or mentally, intellectually, financially, whatever